Welcome to the Underground, my little underground with Peter A.
It's my little underground. I'm Peter A. This week on the show, I got my old friend Nick Bedo, aka Vinylchloryd, on the show today to talk about his new EPs, Switched on Theremin, which is all covers, and Invisible Intonation, which is all originals. And we talked up his love for performing in drag, his own definition of psychedelic music, his future projects, and so much more with Vinylchloryd right here on My Little Underground.
My Little Underground.
All right. Nick Bedo, a.k.a. Vinylchloryd. Welcome to My Little Underground. It's a long time coming. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me on. It's good to be back. I was just talking to my aunt downstairs that I was on, I don't know if it was My Little Underground, but it was one of your podcasts years and years ago when I was in Rucksuck, and I came into that recording studio, and we all did an interview then. So it's, I don't know, that was maybe 2016, I want to say off the top of my head.
Yeah. I was doing that was like college radio. Yeah, that was that was a lot of fun. And I remember you brought a cassette. I think it was one of your cassettes, the early Rucksuck albums. We were trying to like to play it over the air, but it didn't work. But anyway, it was a good conversation. So I'm glad to have you on. There's a lot to talk about with your solo artistry. So the first thing I remember, with your old band Rucksuck, I noticed that you performed in drag, which I thought was interesting. It wasn't like, oh look, there's a man dressed up as a woman. I was like, oh, you're in drag. All right, moving on. You know what I mean? I didn't make a whole thing about it, but I've always been curious as to what got you into drag.
Well, it's a form of self-expression, and it's something, it's very hard for me to say exactly why. It wasn't because of the band, though. It was something that was internal with me. Like when I was very young, I would cross-dress in private a lot, and then I eventually came out of the closet wanting to do that more and more because I have like a very strong feminine side, and I like to express that feminine side through fashion. That being in a rock band was a way that you could have kind of the ability to do that without it being weird, because if you're on stage, it's a thing to dress up. There's the whole context of glam rock, David Bowie and T-Rex, just, the pioneers of that. And so really it was kind of me publicly expressing what had always been a want of mine through dressing in drag with Rucksuck. And I eventually stopped dressing in drag with Rucksuck specifically because I didn't feel like it really fit. It was more of like what I wanted to do for my own personal reasons, and I didn't think it was great for the band, like the look of the band. So the last 2 years of Rucksuck, I totally stopped being in drag, maybe except for one Halloween show where I was, a witch. But I look back now at some of the outfits from Rucksuck, and I definitely cringe because I didn't think I looked that good. I think I like how I look a lot better now. And as far as Vinylchloryd is kind of the artistic manifestation of my internal femininity. I still identify as boy, but I certainly somewhere on the gender spectrum. I've kind of given up trying to figure out where I fall. I just do what I know I like to do and what makes me feel happy. So at the end of the day, it's all art. I like what RuPaul says. We're all born naked, and the rest is drag. So it's really that. Everything we decide to put on ourselves is saying who we are. And I don't know. I just love beauty. I love hair and makeup. I love feminine clothing. I love looking really cute. I don't know why. I can't afford therapy. A therapist might be able to tell me why, but I can't afford that yet. So until then, I do it because I like to do it, and it's fun, and it's a form of art.
And that's it. You don't need any further explanation. If that's how you express yourself, and that's it. There's nothing wrong with you at all. You know what I mean? Nothing like, you don't need to go to therapy for this. That's it. You know what I mean? You owe nobody any explanation, Nick, for how you want to express yourself.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
that's nice to hear because sometimes it sounds more complicated when you're in your thoughts, but then expressing it to someone, it almost simplifies it where um, it kind of is like it really is that simple where it's like, where whatever makes you feel you.
yeah, exactly. And speaking of like a lot of glam icons, have you seen Little Richard has a documentary out about his life, and watching him and his story. He would kind of have the makeup and all that stuff, and the glam thing before the Ziggy Stardust of the world came about,
Yeah.
and also the disco legend Sylvester. Same thing, same situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just watching a little YouTube documentary on Sylvester, so
yeah,
it's kind of fresh in my head. And you know, unfortunately, he didn't survive past the '80s. He died of AIDS,
yeah,
and unfortunately, like many in the gay culture of the '80s, did not see outside of the '80s, unfortunately. But Sylvester, I mean, if he was around nowadays, it wouldn't be surprising if he transitioned. Like if you see some of the pictures, like that was like a man who just really wanted to look like a girl, or was a man who just really wanted to be feminine. And who knows? It's like fluid, as they call it. It's hard to pin down. You might feel one way the other one way one day, another way the other day, and the best way we can express it, in my eyes, is through art and through having fun and just doing what you think looks good and makes you feel good, and then the rest is psychology, which is like, you know, I'm not going to bust out a book on psychology, but sure, I can get really into it that way. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's about having fun and being you and looking great, making a spectacle of yourself, being someone that wants to be seen and people want to see.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And with this, in our country now, unfortunately, like drag is it's politicized, right? Um, have you ever received any sort of criticism or backlash for performing in drag from either family, friends, or people in the creative circle that you perform in?
No, never. No, never any backlash. Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, we live in a really, as much as it is political nowadays, it's also more accepted than ever. And it's pretty mainstream, drag and queer culture. It's pretty mainstream at this point. Um, I'm also not gonna, I'm not gonna play at places that I don't think my music is gonna fit. And if I don't think my music is gonna fit there, then it kind of the rest falls in line. But usually it's the opposite. Usually sometimes I'll go places, um, and I cross dress out off the stage too. I'll go out to the movies with my friends in my makeup and wig and cute clothes and stuff. I'll do it wherever, anywhere. Oftentimes it's either people don't care and completely ignore you, or you get like really beautiful compliments and you see that it's more people are more open-minded than you would even think. Sometimes people who look like they may be I don't know, bigoted towards a man dressed like a woman might come up to you and say something really nice. So I've kind of personally, only speaking for myself, because I know this is certainly not the case for everyone. Um, in my experience, I've just only had really beautiful, positive experiences. Even if in the past, even if I was wearing something that really was ill-fitting.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about your your own ventures into a radio and broadcasting,
Yeah.
electronic hair pieces, right? Your Radio Catskill show. Well, your show is on a little late for myself because I go to bed early if I'm not like doing this or going to a concert and stuff like that. So, tell me about the premise of the show and the kind of music you would play and any insight into your listenership.
Yeah, of course. So Electronic Hair Pieces was a late night radio show that I did for a year when I lived in the Poconos. It was broadcast through public access Radio Catskill. Shout out to Tim Bruno and all the wonderful people who ran that radio station. It was a non-profit. So the idea behind Electronic Hair Pieces was just to play all exclusively vinyl records on the air. Psychedelic rock, prog rock, weird stuff, things you would not hear normally, but and then some things that some of the older listeners haven't heard in years and years. That was a thing I got a lot, actually. People would be like, I haven't heard this record you played in like decades. Like, thank you, this is awesome. Because I primarily lean towards music created before the 90s. My main, like the large chunk of what I listen to is pre-90s. And so that was basically it. It was just a fun thing to do. It was volunteer work. Just wanted to play records on FM radio. And that was right after Rucksuck broke up. So I was kind of looking for new things to do. And that seems like a fun thing to, another notch on my belt, as far as like accomplishments in life. I had a radio show for a year, and you could tune into it on actual FM. It was, to me, I thought that was pretty cool.
Do you listen to radio, and do you have any other need to do a radio show in the future?
No, I wouldn't do it again because I'm all in on polyvinylchloride, and that requires 100% of my attention. So I just, that I did that for the time that I did it, and I wouldn't get back into radio again.
Do you listen to radio?
Just podcasts on like YouTube mainly, and like my iPod. I actually, everything on my iPod is from a CD that I actually uploaded to iTunes like the old school way. Like, I don't have Spotify. I used to in the past, but I just so enjoy buying CDs and then loading them to my iPod, like how I used to do in high school. I think it sounds great with a really nice pair of headphones, and I go for a long, hour-long walk every single day and listen to music. And it just feels closer to the artists and to the music to me, to have actually like made the investment in purchasing it, taking the time to get it on this now antiquated device, the iPod Classic. To me, I just love that. I love audio technology, and it's just, I don't know. So much of what I do is out of the fun of doing it, even if it's not necessarily convenient or easy.
I love listening to CDs as well for the reason that you explained. The quality is tremendous. I noticed the difference because I would listen to like a song on Spotify, then I would listen to it stored on my phone, and the quality is just, it's not comparable. You can't compare the two at all. And I'm also thinking about buying an iPod too because I like the idea of just having one device for music, but I don't like carrying around, so many things, my phone and iPod. But still, I think it's still like it's one of the best creations for music that Apple invented. The first, like, probably the best like digital music experience you can have, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's right before everything needed to have Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
And you can buy a refurbished iPod with a new battery in it and fixed up on eBay for a pretty good price.
Yeah.
And I find for me, beyond the quality, because you can get Spotify to sound as good as an iPod, if you adjust the settings and you have a strong internet connection, it's digital. Digital is digital at the end of the day. But it's more of like the mental thing of committing to what you're listening to and having a limitation of how much music can actually be in your pocket. With Spotify, I may check out an album and be one foot in, one foot out, not fully committed to it, and I'll halfway through the album, I'll switch to something else. If I buy the CD and went through the trouble of putting it on my iPod, I'm like more inclined to be like, all right, I bought this, like I gotta like give it my 100% shot. So it's more of like a mind hack to trick yourself into giving the music you're listening to more of a chance if that makes sense.
No, it does.
It's like, to me, it's like more of a mental thing. Like, I don't know. Like, there really is a different feel that's, it's not measurable. It's beyond quality. There's a different feel to, say, watching a DVD or listening to a CD or an iPod. And the feel is a closeness where it's like, it feels like you're one-on-one with the media, rather than like on YouTube, you can click off of it, click onto another thing, click off of that. Endless options, always clicking. And I'm not bashing that. I use YouTube and I used to use Spotify all the time. Not bashing it. I'm just kind of discussing how that there really is a different feel to it, an immeasurable human feel of closeness to the media that you're with. That I personally, as a media enjoyer, find very valuable.
What's also very valuable too is like when you're listening to music not connected to a DSP, right? When you're asked the question, what are you listening to? I think it's easier to answer because you only have a select like number of albums or songs or to pick from. If you ask the because I've done this, ask any regular person, what are you listening to? The first thing to do is whip out their phone and look at their Spotify playlist. Like they don't remember what they listen to because so much information is coming at you. The Spotify algorithm is showing you new things every day, and you just kind of nothing really sticks, you know?
Yeah, that definitely could be the case where it's like an overload. But at the end of the day, if you're listening to music and you're enjoying it, it doesn't matter if it's Spotify, CD, record, as long as you're enjoying your music,
Yeah.
whatever way you as a person like it. If you like just playlists and not albums, great. If you only prefer albums, great. It's a personal experience, at the end of the day. That's why I don't like to get too into bashing like streaming and like the new ways of doing things, because then you
Yep.
start to, I don't know, I think that's like an old way of seeing things, where you're constantly trying to justify why you like to use older stuff. Like vinyl records, I like them because they're cool. They don't sound better. They're not more convenient. They are, there's so much wrong with them, but they're just so cool. It's a big square of art. They're collectible. They're kind of historical items that have been around for decades. Awesome. Often, like it's kind of like it's okay to justify why you do something just because it's cool. You don't have beyond sound quality or measurable scientific things. Sometimes you just want to do something because it's cool to do, and that's it.
Yeah. Speaking of cool, your two new EPs, Switched on Theremin, which is all covers, and Invisible Intonations, which is all originals. So tell me your process of releasing two sister EPs as opposed to going the traditional route of putting out an LP.
Yeah, of course. Well, I actually, I really enjoy putting out mini LPs, which is a term not often used, but I've seen it used on albums in the before where it's not quite an EP, but it's a mini LP. It is an EP, but meant to be seen as like an album, not like a single with some extras. So as Polyvinylchloride, that is all I will be releasing is 5-song albums that are like 20 to 30 minutes. I like working in that format because I can focus in on an idea and say, this is the covers album, this is the Theremin album. I just finished another album that's going to come out next month, and that is the moog exploitation plantation inspired album. I'm able to work quicker in the 5-song album format and not commit to like, this is the sound of polyvinylchloride. Rather, this is the sound of just this one collection of 5 songs. And in the past with Rucksuck, it would take like 2 years to make an album. And in that amount of time, you hate your music. Anyone who records music knows the longer you sit with it, record and mix it, you will eventually start to hate your work. So and you kind of grow past it. You're already thinking about the next project, but you have days and all the sessions of mixing to go through. So I like to just work quicker and more focused and just get ideas out as they come to me. And so it switched on Theremin and Invisible Intonation. It was originally going to just be one album with a mix of originals and covers. And then I don't know, just as I went down the line, I was like, it's more focused if I can. It's easily more sellable if I say this is a Theremin covers album, not also an originals. If I can just market it as that. And then I was like, also like, let me like really wring out and milk through every Theremin stuff that I have left in me before I stop playing the Theremin. And then I did the originals too. So I don't know. It just felt like it made sense to me. It made it easy to talk about and market what it even is that I'm making. You know, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
A lot of it is from a marketing standpoint. Marketing just being how do you effectively communicate your concept to people in the shortest amount of time, you know?
Yeah, I struggle with that with my podcast because I think people get hung up with the name My Little Underground, where it's so simple. It's I named it after the Jesus and Mary Chain song. You know, I just love them so much, and it's a
Now,
music centric show, and there you go.
my radio show was named after an old album.
Yeah.
Electronic Hair Pieces was an album by Mort Garson, a synthesizer composer I really like, who is famous for Plantasia.
Yep.
He was contracted back in the 60s to make a synthesizer cover album of the Hair soundtrack. I've never seen it, but there's that famous play Hair.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not going to try and sing it, but there's some famous songs from there. So Electronic Hair Pieces was the name of his cover album of the soundtrack to Hair.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a cool name, Electronic Hair Pieces. I wanted to pick a name that people wouldn't know what the hell it meant at first. And then when they look into it, they're like, oh, okay. Rather than calling my show something corny like Nick Bedo's Power Hour, you know?
And that's your speed metal hour. That's your thrash metal hour.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So, when it comes to Swish on Theremin, right? You're doing a lot of classic psychedelic songs, right? Stuff from the Beatles. So you run the gamut. The Wizard of Oz, Kraftwerk, right? And you have your own personal definition of what a psychedelic song is. So it's kind of not like beholden to a certain genre. Can you expand on what your definition of psychedelic is?
Yeah, of course. Psychedelic to me is far more than just dropping acid or taking mushrooms. The drug aspect of it. Psychedelic kind of is an umbrella term for music that makes you kind of leave your body, makes you go to a deeper place, makes you kind of transcend, makes you. It's a deep. There's a deepness to psychedelia. It's more than it reveal than surface level. To me, I've always been attracted to psychedelic music for that reason, and I will call a lot of things psychedelic that are not overtly psychedelic, like the song "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." I think is psychedelic because it's longing to be more than what you are and to expand upon yourself. It's this idea that we're more than just our flesh and blood, and that our mind has so much energy to it that it's just like so imaginatory, like you, and that kind of gets into the psychedelic visionary art realm that I really love, because I really like, I'm a big fan of Alex Gray and Allison Gray and their work at the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and that's all about psychedelic art, and it blends into spirituality, it blends into, in some cases, people who have important deep experiences on a psychedelic substance. It's like mystery, it's exploration of the self. At times it can even just be relaxing. There's some psychedelic music that's just relaxing. There's some psychedelic music which is the most intense, fuzzed out distortion. It just can be so much, but it all comes down to this depth and this wanting to explore outside of the flesh.
Okay. So you don't need to have a guitar to be
No,
considered psychedelic,
no, you
which
can
I know
use
is true. Yeah.
psychedelic music with anything.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to your originals project, Invisible Intonation, the one thing I noticed is the closer, "Woke Up Smiling," is one. It's probably it's. I think it's the only song on both projects where you're singing, where there's vocals. So, is there a specific reason for this, or did you just want your closer to just stand out in any way?
It's a little peek at what's to come because the future
Okay.
polyvinyl chloride I will be singing, and I don't know, that song just felt like I wanted to add words to it, and
Okay.
that was that, and I was experimenting. I listened back to that song, and I'm like, I can't. I don't know if I like it or not. I don't know if I did a good job on it, but either way, I just had to finish it and put it out. But yeah, Woke Up Smiling is a little nod to what's to come with polyvinyl chloride in the more synth pop direction, where I will be singing and playing synthesizer, performing live.
Are you going to be expanding the kind of like the live sound for polyvinyl chloride? Are you just going to be performing by yourself? Are you going to eventually add more musicians?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm only getting started. And the Theremin was my way to get my foot in the door to the music scene out in Long Island and now in Brooklyn and whatnot. Um, because I knew the Theremin would just be something so interesting that it would immediately grab people's attention, and that's how I could kind of um, be seen through all the competition, so to speak. So Theremin to me is kind of a gimmick. Like I can't play it super well, but I can play it well enough to do it live. Um, but yeah, to come with polyvinyl chloride, I'm gonna be basically giving up the theremin. That was only for these two projects, and I'll be singing and playing synthesizer, and then have a drum machine sequencer rig, and be doing some like kind of psychedelic new wave, craftworky type of music. And then next year, after I do what I just said, next year I will be putting a band together, and I will be seeking out a bassist and a drummer to just tear it up behind me while I play and sing the synthesizer. So there's a lot of expansion to come, and I kind of have it pretty meticulously planned out. And so phase one is kind of at its conclusion. I made a lot of friends and connections out playing in Suffolk County and Brooklyn and whatnot. Got my foot in the door. I know the places I would play. I know the other bands and musicians I would ask to be on shows and whatnot. And that was Theremin was kind of just like my way to just get a start because I couldn't afford to get all these drum machines and synths yet. So I just have me and my Theremin and my backing tracks, which I would play through my amp on my iPod. So the iPod was technically a part of the show, not
All
just
right.
for my walks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for coming on and telling the polyvinyl chloride story. Please use this time to plug away whatever you got coming and how we can listen to your EPs.
Yeah, of course. So I'm the most active on Instagram. So you can find me at PolyVMusic on Instagram. Likewise on YouTube, PolyVMusic. YouTube is where you'll see my live performance videos playing the theremin. And I'm now on Spotify as of recently, so just search polyvinyl chloride, um, which I spell weird, so maybe maybe search switched on theremin, and that'll come up easier than polyvinyl chloride. Unfortunately, like other bands like Krungbin, I picked a name that's really hard to pronounce and spell.
Yes.
Um, I've seen it's spelled all different kinds of ways when people put it on posters and stuff. But anyway, go on Instagram. That will lead you to all my other links and ways to listen to me on Bandcamp. I have a cassette tape that I just released you can buy on Bandcamp. So yeah, just follow me on Instagram at PolyVMusic.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, dude. You have a great day.
You too.
My little underground.